after October 7th, I realized that a lot of this surveillance technology was actually coming from Israel. And a lot of the policies for mass surveillance are actually coming from AIPAC and the Israeli lobby. And I was like, holy shit. But that wasn't the reason why I got so connected to the Palestinian cause. Was now the Google searches, like if you look for, the children's military detention centers and all of like the UN reports on the violations that are happening in the occupied Palestinian territories, you won't find those things anymore. But I was reading article after article of things that they would do to children. I was watching documentaries where children were saying that they were hung like to crosses, electrocuted, had dogs, attacking them. And it was just horrific. I mean, it was stuff that you see on like horror movies and stuff. I didn't think this shit was real. So after October 7th, I was like, oh my God, how could somebody do that to the Jewish people and whatnot? And then my mind was just blown. I knew nothing about the occupation prior to October 7th. So it was really a kind of turnaround for me. Like I had been so sheltered, and I felt so guilty for not paying attention sooner. And I feel like there's a lot of people who are in my position that had no idea that now we're suddenly awake, because these things are also starting to hit home. We realize that the Israeli lobby pays our congressmen to vote in policies that are against the American people. So like everybody needs to understand that this affects you either directly or indirectly.
Couldn't have said it better. Jen, your thoughts?
I mean, look, everybody knows somebody at least that has been woken to this, at least this particular situation in the past couple of years. And it's important, and it's important for everybody on their particular platform with their particular friend group and whatever their demographic is to convey the message. So I don't care how people get to the right side of history. I really don't. Like, it's a good thing that you got it and that you understand like all this stuff is connected now. It's all connected.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for me, I've always been on the side of justice, but this takes it to a whole other level, because for both of us respectively, Jen comes from a Zionist background. I grew up amongst Zionists on one side of my family, and I'm also in a line of work where they are there, and I have to make very deliberate decisions about who I break bread with, and I think that's becoming sort of the norm now. We have seen, how far some people are willing to go, and as far as whether or not we are going to economically sanction Israel out of existence. It can't be done just by us, because our country is simply not in a position to control the levers of power, financially speaking. But it does seem that that's becoming a big topic around the world right now. And I assume that you're familiar with what's happened in Turkey and what they just decided to do regarding how they cut off a substantial portion. I guess there's steel appears to be a very big industry in Israel, and as it is as well as in Turkey. And now, as I've been saying all along, the only way we're getting out of this is if we basically break them economically. There is no other way. Money and power is the only thing anybody ever understands.
It's BDS. It's BDS. Yeah. That's what is needed globally, right? That's what
exactly. I completely agree. Yes, we have to cut off the money, and we have to cut off the weapons supply to them.
This is one instance. So apparently, and I have suspicions about anything involving, because Turkey is one of those places, and this is a Eurasian thing. It really does. It's on both sides often of a conflict, right? Like there's a connection between them in multiple sides of one conflict. So it's always hard to know. So you might be doing this, but then you're also giving them something under, you know what I mean? Even because you'll have countries that'll say, oh yes, we recognize the state of Palestine, but yet they're still sending money and weapons to Ziohel. So I don't know if this is a symbolic thing, but it's still, I like that it's happening. I'm just saying, I want to preface it with, I don't know how much, real, hardiness this has.
Right.
Well,
And then a lot of countries seem to be making promises about like, oh, we're thinking about sanctioning Israel, or we may cut off weapon supply, and then later on we find out that a shipment has been delivered to Israel since then, and everybody's like, wait a minute, what's going on here? So yeah, we're having a world stage where none of the leaders have any credibility. This is a very dangerous place for
Yeah.
everybody to be.
Okay, so what's going on is somebody's saying what's going on with Turkey and Iran. I'm not sure exactly what you're talking about with that. But this is very encouraging.
well, one of the things that we've noticed, and Mia, where in the States are you located?
I'm actually in San Diego. Oh,
Okay.
and by the way, I know you had the am I Palestinian question. No, I'm actually not Palestinian. I'm Mexican and
Mexican.
Italian.
Oh, Mexican.
Oh.
There we go.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like San Diego.
All it makes me think about is what I want for dinner. Seriously,
Yes.
that's all that just happened now when you just said that.
Well,
Birria, tacos. Mm.
Well, no, I could go Italian or I could go Mexican. Sorry.
Mhm.
well, I will say this, having gotten there finally for the first time back in the spring, Old Town, excellent, excellent, excellent. Great place to visit if you guys are ever in San Diego. The food there is exceptional. And great historic sites as well. I like that.
Yeah, it's good to visit. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so one of the things that we've noticed, probably not as bad in California overall, although in Los Angeles and probably parts of San Francisco, it's obvious because of the sizable Jewish population that's not in San Diego per se, but obviously in Los Angeles. They make a very big deal about any attempts at BDS legislation. Like, in fact, that more than anything else is what drives people insane. And the dreaded Congresswoman that Jen ran for office against, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, is at the forefront of pushing anti-BDS legislation.
Oh, yeah.
And so when something like this happens, there's a reason why they push that legislation, because this is Israel's weak point. If you start going for the throat when it comes to their financial resources, like a steel and scrap metal business that Turkey basically cut off their air supply and choked them out of business, that's real power. And that's how we can get them to bend the knee.
The other thing I would encourage people to do is to check to see where you live and see if there's a sister city with where you live. I just found out that San Diego has a sister city with Israel proper in one of the kibbutzes. And yeah, I had no idea. And so I guess, and then I also found out that Rachel Corrie, where she was originally from, she was trying to get a sister city with a Palestinian city. And this was before she was murdered. And so it would be really interesting. Me and a few people have kind of thrown around the idea of, pushing for a sister city in Palestine, and help funding them with, whatever they need, the hospitals, rebuilding, education. And, it's not necessarily saying like, oh, let's cut off our sister city with Israel because, they have a huge mayhem with that, which I would love if that happened. But how can you argue that we shouldn't be assisting Palestinians as well? Hey, if we're helping out Israelis, it's only fair if we help out Palestinians. That's not anti-Semitic to say that.
Are you sure it isn't? I'm just...
in my heart, helping out these children that have been having to live in caves essentially because their homes are demolished and they don't have access to their schools. A lot of times I've seen so many videos of there's a regular practice of the IOF tear gassing schools because they're trying to discourage Palestinian children from making it to their schools. It's just disgusting.
That doesn't surprise me. That's the kind of stuff that's been happening in the West Bank pretty continuously since 67. But as we knew, when this quote unquote, and I am very loath to use the term ceasefire because as I'm going to say, we knew that not only would it not be real, but you wouldn't call stopping a genocide a ceasefire, just you wouldn't call it that. But Ziohel's broken it like 140 something times already, or whatever it is, some ridiculous number, because of course they did. But it's actually the past few days have been ramped up again at a level like was in the very beginning.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. And the videos that are coming out from that, it just, horrendous. They're saying, oh, well, there was two main reasons. They said that we're not getting the bodies of our hostages back, yet Hamas has been putting out statements on a regular basis like, hey, we're not able to get equipment in to
Yeah.
get underneath the rubble. And they had said from the start, like, we are not going to be able to get everybody back in the timely manner that you guys would like. We don't have access to these areas. And then what was the other thing? As far as disarmament, they were saying that they are willing to give up power to another faction, but they weren't going to necessarily disarm like right away. So that was kind of like both of them have. The Israelis are having expectations that the Hamas was already saying like, hey, this is what I'm agreeing to. And the United States was like, okay, cool, we'll do that. And the Israelis are like, no, that's not what we want. So there's three parties in here that are fighting over this, but yet Israel is still allowed to bomb. So
Mea, can I just ask you, have you ever been to Ziohel?
Beverly Hills?
No. Have you ever been? I'm trying.
That is Ziohel. That's a great response, by the way.
No. Have you ever been? I call Israel Ziohel.
No, I've never been there. And I love the statement when they say like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. You've never been to Israel.
Well, that's why I'm mocking that guy. What's his name, Peter, that did that? You cannot discuss it if you have not been. What was his name? Douglas Murray.
Douglas Murray. Doug Murray.
That's what I was trying to do. Yeah, he was. That's what he was saying about somebody commenting on what was going on is that, and that's how he sounded. But yeah, the best response for that too is, I've also never been to Germany or Poland, but yeah, I will happily condemn the Nazis. I'll happily condemn the Holocaust. I don't have to have gone somewhere in order to know that the atrocities are wrong, to know that starving children is inappropriate, that you shouldn't cut off supplies to an entire population of people. It's wrong. Of course. No, I actually have been, just because I was on a Zio brainwashing tour in high school, based on just where I come from. So I have been, and I still feel exactly as disgusted, if not more so, just based on knowing that I participated in ethnic cleansing, unknowingly was used as a tool in ethnic cleansing.
Did it change your perception on things after you came back from there?
No, because when I was there, it was 1987, and it was before there were any visible signs of apartheid. So there was no wall, there were no separate highways yet. It wasn't, that stuff happened after the first Intifada, which was the fall, literally after I left. So when I was there, there was no reason to question. Like, we didn't see anything. We weren't shown anything that would have us question, and it wasn't visible. So I didn't know, and therefore participated in like planting trees and other ridiculous nonsense in places that we should not have been.
According to Israeli Business Daily calculists, the Ashdod-based Shaul Gueta company, which specializes in collecting, sorting, crushing, and selling scrap metal to foreign markets, was heavily reliant on exports to Turkey, which accounted for 70% of its sales. As reported, the company's revenue fell sharply from 200 million shekels in 2022 to roughly 35 million shekels in the first half of this year, leaving it with total debts of around 105 million shekels. Shaul Gueta's largest creditor, the International, filed for 18 million shekels in court, while other creditors, including Bank Hapoalim, Mercantile Bank, Mizrahi Tefahat Bank, and non-banking credit firms Max, SR Accord, and Ampla each owed millions. So the Beersheba District Court accepted a petition by Israel International Bank and appointed attorney Doron Tishman as trustee. He will determine whether the company will be liquidated or restructured. How about collapsing?